Welcome back, learners. This is a continuation of the previous video in which we did a summary of the lesson, the last lesson. Here we are discussing some unfamiliar phrases and some questions that are commonly asked in examinations. This is the first phrase that some learners find unfamiliar. In great dread of, it means was frightened of. While he was going to school, he was thinking of he was assuming that he would get a scolding from his teacher M. Hamel because he had been told to learn the rules of participles and he had not. So he was in great dread of a scolding. He was frightened of getting a scolding. The next phrase, bulletin board. This is actually a notice board that had been put up in the town hall. And the next word is draft, and draft means compulsory enlisting for military service. Now here are some questions. Let's discuss them. What is the meaning of in great dread? This I have already explained. It means was frightened of. The second question is like this. Why was Franz in great dread of a scolding? Because he had not memorized the rules of participles. His teacher had told him to. This is the answer here. The next question, what made Franz think of running away and spending the day out of doors? So for a moment, while he was going to school, he thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. Why? Because the day was warm and bright. It was very tempting. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and then the Prussian soldiers were drilling. He wanted to see all of them. He wanted to have fun. But he had the strength to resist all these temptations and hurried off to school. The last question on this page. What do you think is the bulletin board? It is a notice board. And in those days, they did not have the internet, of course, the television, of course. So all public news, all news came through this town hall, through this notice board in the town hall, which is called the bulletin board. And what bad news came from there? These are the bad news. The lost battles, the battles that France had lost, the draft, the news that they had to compulsorily serve in the army and fight in the war, even if they did not want to, and then the orders of the commanding officer. He saw that there was a crowd gathered around the bulletin board, and he thought to himself, something might have happened. What could be the matter now? But he did not stop there. He kept on going, and while he was going, somebody stopped him. He said, "Don't go so fast, Bob. You'll get to your school in plenty of time." What do you mean by that, plenty of time? This is the explanation. You'll have a lot of time to go to school later. He was early. In simple words, school can wait. Important things are happening. He had already seen what was put up on the bulletin board. He knew that going to school was of no use. That is why he said this to Franz. Franz thought he was making fun of him, or Wachter was making fun of him, so he kept on walking. And he was already late, and he was planning to get into the classroom without anybody seeing him. He thought that he would take advantage of the noise that can be heard in a school in a normal day, on a normal day. The din and bustle of the learners coming in and going out, opening their books, opening the desks. So he thought that he would take advantage of this commotion, the noise, and then enter the classroom without his teacher seeing him. Here are some words you might find unfamiliar. One is bustle, noise. It means noise or hurried activity. The second phrase is in unison. It means together. While the lessons were going on, learners would repeat the lessons together in unison. And commotion, I've already talked about this, it means noise or din. These are the noises he thought he would take advantage of to get into the classroom. But of course, it was a bad day for him. That day everything was as quiet as a Sunday morning, and he could not sneak in. Here is the second question. How did Franz plan to enter a classroom unnoticed? And so these are the points that he will talk about. He was, this is the answer. I had counted on the commotion. He had counted on the commotion. He thought of taking advantage of the commotion. And the third question on this page, describe a usual day in M. Hammer's school. These are the things that he will talk about. The din and bustle of learners running around, opening their books and desks. These are the normal things that you could see in M. Hammer's school under normal circumstances. Describe the unusual things Franz saw that day. Okay, the first unusual thing was the school was as quiet as a Sunday morning. The second unusual thing was that the teacher, had his beautiful green coat on. It was frilled, and if you do not know the meaning of frills, this is the meaning: shirt with frills, pleated piece of clothing sewn at the edge of a dress. These are frills. You can see the cursor here. You can see the sleeves here. And in those days it was a fashion. But M. Himmel had put on his best shirt that he had. It was green in color. And apart from that, this was the first unusual thing. This was the second unusual thing. The first unusual thing was the quiet school, the silence in the school. The second unusual thing is M. Himmel wearing his green coat. He was also wearing his black cap. And besides these, he could see some old men sitting in the back of the room. And they were Hauser, the postmaster, the former postmaster, the former mayor, and everybody had come to the school with their primers. Now, what is a primer? A primer is an elementary textbook that serves as an introduction to a subject or study, or is used for teaching children to read. So they had not learned how to read and write their own mother tongue. So, as a last ditched effort, they had come to school to learn something from M. Hamel. Thumbed at the edges, this is another phrase you should know. It means worn or soiled edges caused by frequent handling. Dog-eared, it means dog-eared, having the corners worn or battered with use. You can see old books like that with the corners turning up. Okay, here are some questions. What was so surprising about Hauser, the former mayor and the former postmaster? They were all old people sitting in the school. That was what was surprising to Franz. Why did everybody look sad? Because they were regretting they had not learned how to read and write their own mother tongue. And now that there were no chance of learning it anymore, that is why they were sad. What do you mean by thunderclap? Here is the meaning written here. It means startling or unexpected. When M. Hamel declared that he was going to teach the last lesson, this announcement came as a thunderclap, something startling or unexpected to Franz. The next question, who were the wretches? And this here is the answer. Who were the wretches? The Germans who had occupied Alsace and Lorraine. While coming to school, he could see some people gathered around the bulletin board. So he didn't realize what had happened. Now he realized what had happened. He could see that they had been ordered to start teaching German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Okay, what had been put up in the town hall? This is another question you might get. And what is the reply? That German had to be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. How did people waste their time instead of learning? According to Himmel, they would send their children to work to make money instead of learning lessons, taking lessons, and then he himself was guilty of declaring holidays, and then the nation as a general had a habit of procrastinating, putting off things for tomorrow. To put off things for tomorrow was a habit that everybody had in France. How was M. Hamel responsible for the learner's inability to read and write French? M. Hamel confessed that he himself was guilty to some extent because he would declare a holiday when he didn't feel like teaching. Here are some more words. One is nuisance, cause of irritation. Uh, Franz and all the other students, learners taught their lessons a nuisance, their bags, their school books a nuisance, a cause of irritation. And now that M. Hamel was teaching the last lesson, these books, these very same books and bags, appeared to be nice to them. And then M. Hamel also looked very gentle and polite. He did not look bad tempered or irritable, like other days, like normal days. This is another question. Why were the old men sitting in the back of the room? Because they wanted to learn as much as they could, and they were saying goodbye to M. Hamel and also to their motherland. How were parents responsible for the Frenchman's inability to read and write French? Because they would send their children to study, to make money, to work, to make money, instead of sending them to school. That is how they were responsible. What did M. Hamel say about French? Do you agree with him? Why not? Okay, M. Hamel said that French is the most beautiful language in the world, and it is also the most logical language in the world. You may agree with him or you may not, but to be able to answer that question, you should know something about French. Here are some phrases you should know again. Put off. To put off means to put off things, to postpone things, and that habit is called procrastination in English. What is the habit of putting off things for later called? It's called procrastination, and this is the way you can use the word in a sentence. Procrastination kills talent and drives away opportunities. To reproach means to scold, to express one's disappointment in their actions. So he said that everybody has a hand, everybody has to be blamed for their inability to read and write their own mother tongue. So everybody should reproach themselves, scold themselves. And this is the map of Europe, basically France here. You can see that Alsace and Lorraine are two border towns. And being border towns, they were the first to fall to any external aggression. During the First World War and the Second World War also, they were the first towns to fall. Here are some more topics to discuss, more things to discuss. This is what he said about mother tongue. He said that once, as long as a nation can hold on to its mother tongue, there was no danger of losing its identity or culture. It was like if it is occupied, even then it will be able to get out of slavery, because language is the foundation of a culture. It is like the key to their prison. What is the prison? The enslavement in which they are put by an invading army. Now this is a question here you might get. Why does M. Hamel say this? Because it can help preserve a nation's cultural identity and uniqueness. It is the foundation of a culture, without which the nation becomes extinct. Think of the communities who don't have a written language. They lose their identity and culture as a nation over time. So, this is the question to which you can write these points. And then this is another question which is kind of common and easy. What lessons were taught in class that day? So they started the day with grammar, followed by, this is grammar followed by writing, and they wrote the names of France Alsace, on their copybooks, on their notebooks, and then the young children learned their lessons also. And after that, while these lessons were going on, Franz saw a few pigeons and he started thinking about them. He thought that the Germans would make them sing in German. Why does he say so? Why does he think so? This is why what this is what the author means by saying this. Here the author comments on how a nation can lose its cultural heritage and individuality when it loses its language. If pigeons are forced to sing like nightingales, there will be no pigeons, right? Moreover, the mother tongue comes naturally, just like pigeons coo and nightingales sing. Forcing someone to give up their mother tongue is like forcing pigeons to roar and lions to coo. In a single sentence, the writer has uh, put in, put forward his views about the, the views about one's mother tongue, how it can preserve individuality and culture. So after this lesson, yeah, here is another word that you might find unfamiliar. This is a kind of a tree, and I added a picture here. You can find it. This is a vine. It's a creeper actually. It creeps up, and this is a close-up of the of vine fruit, or maybe the flower. Okay, so while he was teaching, Hamel looked around and he looked very nostalgic and sad. And then he could also hear the sound of his sister packing their things in the room above. And it was kind of sad for Hamel because it was his last day. He was leaving the country forever. And after writing, they had a lesson in history. And after the history, the babies had their primary lessons, ABCD alphabet, or maybe the numbers. And while he was teaching, after some time, a trumpet was blown. And when the trumpet blew, it was blown at 12. So it was an indication that they had to go. So by this time, the teacher was overwhelmed with emotion, and that is why he was choked. He could not speak, and with trembling hand, he wrote on the board, "Vive la France," which means, loosely translated, "Long live France." And then he was so overwhelmed with emotions that he could not speak. He simply gestured with his hand to tell the class that class had been dismissed. Okay, here are some questions that are included in the textbook itself. This is read the question. The people in the story suddenly realize how precious their language is to them. What shows you this? These are the points you can include in your answer. Old man sitting in the back of the room. France paying attention and finding lessons easy. Even babies chanting their lessons attentively. Hamel teaching kindly, gently, and patiently. These are all indications that they realized how precious their language was. Why does this happen? Because they had been postponing, they had been neglecting their duty, they had been neglecting their lessons because of their habit of procrastination. When a people, this is another question, we have already discussed them. France sings, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? When a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast onto their language, this also has been discussed. So we'll not dwell over them, but we'll talk about this phrase here, linguistic chauvinism. It is excessive liking for one's language to the extent that other languages are looked down upon as inferior. After occupying France, the Germans abolished French and forced everybody to learn German. So this is an example of linguistic chauvinism and aggression, domination. Here are some words given. We need to find their origins. Tycoon is a Japanese word. Then we have barbecue is a Spanish word. The original word is barbacoa. Zero, the original is zero from French. Tulip is a German word originally. Veranda, a Hindi word originally. It also can be found in Portuguese, which means long balcony or terrace. Ski is of Norwegian origin. Logo Greek. Robot Czech origin. Uh, the original word was robotnik. It means forced worker. Trek Afrikaans and bandicoot. Pandikukku is a Telugu word which literally means pig rat or big rats. The multiple choice questions have already been discussed previously. You may need to go back to be able to answer them. This is like an assignment. Take it like an assignment and do it. And then there are a few more assignments here. You need to pick out 5 sentences from the story with the past perfect form of the verb and say why this form has been used. And then you need to write a notice for a school bulletin board. The notice could be an announcement for a forthcoming event. We have already learned this. We learned this in the previous year. So you should be able to write one without any assistance. And then you need to write a paragraph of about 100 words, arguing for or against having to study 3 languages at school. Okay, thank you for now. See you again.